Diddy, one of the most powerful figures in the music industry, collapsed in front of the entire courtroom upon learning that his $50 million bail package had been denied. From a mogul accustomed to luxurious mansions and private jets, Diddy now faces life in a small jail cell, and the shock of this situation is almost too much to bear. His bail, a desperate plea for freedom, has been rejected, and now the question is, what do you think of this drastic change? Can Diddy overcome these challenges and regain his power? Leave a comment below and let's dive into this together right now. Diddy, yes, the Diddy did everything in his power to avoid being locked up after his arrest. He put forward a bail package so massive it would leave anyone speechless, a staggering $50 million. Imagine that. His lawyers crafted this colossal deal, putting up nearly all of Diddy's valuable assets in exchange for temporary freedom, if only for a short while. First, he proposed a bail amount of $50 million, which was already enough to leave anyone in shock, right? But he didn't stop there. Diddy was truly willing to bet it all. He included his $48 million mansion in Miami, with every luxurious amenity imaginable, as part of the bail package. And as if that wasn't enough, he even put up his private jet, the very jet he likely used for his global travels, as collateral. As if that wasn't enough, he even brought his family into the mix. Diddy's mother and other family members all signed the bail package, showing just how desperately they wanted to get him out of this mess. On top of that, Diddy committed to handing over his passport, making sure he couldn't escape to some tropical island. He even agreed to house arrest. It was almost like he was saying, "I'll stay at home, just please don't make me go to jail." But that's not all. His lawyers went even further, proposing a deal that included weekly drug tests to prove he was clean, sending a list of visitors every evening to keep track of who was coming and going, and even limiting female visitors to just his mother, daughters, and the mothers of his children. No other women would be allowed to visit. Diddy was clearly willing to follow every rule if it meant he wouldn't have to spend time behind bars. But despite all of that, the judge just took one look at the lavish bail package and said, "No." Why, you ask? This is where things started to get messy. The prosecution made a compelling argument, pointing out that Diddy wasn't the kind of person you could trust to stay out of trouble. They brought up some pretty concerning details from his past, painting a rather ugly picture of his character. One of the big things the prosecution brought up were Diddy's old text messages. And let me tell you, these weren't the kind of texts anyone would want showing up in court. One in particular from 2016 was especially bad. It came right after an incident where Diddy was caught on camera with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, at a hotel. The images were widely shared by the media, especially after reports surfaced about a heated argument between them right there at the hotel. Some accounts suggested there was physical altercation and tension as Diddy and Cassie left the hotel, although there was no clear evidence of violence. And that wasn't even the worst part. He's reportedly paid the hotel $50,000 to delete the security footage that allegedly showed him throwing a glass vase at Cassie during the argument. Pulling moves like that is definitely not the best strategy when you're trying to convince a judge that you won't interfere with evidence or witnesses. The court also had to consider the undeniable fact that Diddy's immense wealth and influence have given him numerous ways to make things disappear, whether it's evidence, witnesses, or anything else that could disrupt his trial. Let's be honest, a person with that kind of money can do a lot behind the scenes. The court was concerned that he might use his resources to obstruct justice, or even try to sway those involved in the case. And let's not forget, Diddy is no stranger to scandals. He has been accused of everything from bribery to obstruction of justice in the past. So the concern that he might interfere with witnesses this time around isn't exactly a wild hypothesis. In fact, when you look at other high-profile cases, Diddy's situation starts to make a lot more sense. Take Harvey Weinstein, for example. In 2017, he was denied bail despite offering millions of dollars. Why? Because the court was concerned about obstruction of justice. And who could forget Jeffrey Epstein? He also proposed a massive bail package, but the judge rejected it due to fears that Epstein would use his wealth to flee or interfere with witnesses. The court had seen cases like this before, and they weren't willing to take that risk with Diddy. When Diddy heard in the courtroom that his $50 million bail proposal had been denied and realized he wouldn't be going home, it was like watching someone crash into a wall at full speed. Witnesses said he looked completely stunned, as if the weight of everything had been pressing down on him for weeks and suddenly came crashing down all at once. As the judge's words sank in, Diddy truly collapsed. Whether it was the shock, the stress, or sheer mental exhaustion, he couldn't bear it. Medical staff were called in, and it quickly became clear that the weight of his situation was pressing down on him, perhaps more than he had ever anticipated. This breakdown wasn't just a physical reaction, it was a manifestation of something deeper. Diddy, who has spent his entire life surrounded by fame, wealth, and the utmost luxury, now faces the harsh reality that the days of private jets and red carpets are over, at least for the time being. He is confronted with the prospect of a cold, cramped jail cell, and for someone who has never experienced anything more uncomfortable than a delayed flight or a bad review, the thought of that is almost unbearable. The psychological strain of transitioning from a $48 million mansion to a 6-by-9 cell is truly hard to fathom. How could someone who's lived in unimaginable luxury ever accept having to sleep on a thin prison mattress instead of silky sheets? For Diddy, this may very well be the moment when everything becomes real. He's accustomed to controlling everything, his career, his image, even the people around him. But now, he's faced with a situation where neither his wealth nor his influence can save him. This is a heavy blow to anyone's ego, but for Diddy, it's truly a nightmare. He's no longer the one in control. Now he's at the mercy of a system he can't buy or manipulate. No charm, no style, no amount of money can make this go away, and that realization must have been terrifying. For someone who's lived a life where he could shape reality to his will, facing an unyielding, impersonal system is a stark and humbling experience. Don't forget that Diddy has faced his fair share of legal trouble in the past, but he always managed to find a way out. In the past, it seemed like he had a golden touch. Allegations arose, scandals erupted, but he always found a way to slip through unscathed. Take the infamous 1999 nightclub shooting incident, for example, when Diddy and his girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, were arrested after a shooting left 3 people injured. Somehow, Diddy managed to avoid conviction, while his associate, Shine, took the fall. Time and time again, he found ways to dodge the full consequences of his actions by exploiting the loopholes in the justice system. This isn't just a nightclub altercation or a small scandal. These are charges that could potentially land him behind bars for life. And it's clear that for the first time in his life, Diddy realized he might not be able to escape this one. Just the thought that he could actually spend years, perhaps decades, in prison was undoubtedly a major factor in his collapse in the courtroom. For someone who's lived like royalty, The idea of being confined in one of the country's most notorious detention centers is nothing short of a nightmare. When news of Diddy's collapse spread, the reactions from the music industry were a mix of shock and concern. Celebrities who once saw him as an untouchable mogul couldn't believe what they were hearing. The hip-hop community, which had always regarded Diddy as a larger-than-life icon, someone who had survived scandals, legal battles, and the industry's ups and downs, was now left uncertain. This time, they weren't sure if he could bounce back from this shock. On social media, there were messages of support from some, while others expressed doubt, wondering if this marked the beginning of the end for Diddy. It's one thing to have a tarnished reputation due to scandals, but for someone like Diddy who built his empire on power, invincibility, and control, this collapse wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. His world was crumbling right before his eyes, and no amount of money or fame could fix it. Famous prisoners like Diddy face a unique kind of psychological strain when they are incarcerated. They've lived a life surrounded by luxury, yes, but also by constant attention and admiration. Every move Diddy made was followed by the public, either praised or criticized for years. But he always had his entourage, fans, and wealth to cushion the blows. Now in prison, all of that is stripped away. The isolation hits harder for someone like him. Not just because of the physical solitude, but because of the sudden loss of everything that defined who he was in the outside world. For Diddy, sitting alone in a cold cell with nothing but his thoughts must feel like the world is closing in on him. That's why authorities aren't taking any chances, keeping him under 24/7 surveillance to ensure he doesn't harm himself. Not to mention, the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, where Diddy is being held, is notorious as one of the worst prisons in the country. The facility has a terrible reputation, and it certainly lives up to it. The conditions there are absolutely horrendous, filthy, cramped, and inhumane. Sanitation is nearly non-existent, with prisoners often having to endure days without being able to clean themselves properly. The cells are freezing cold in the winter and unbearably hot in the summer. There have even been reports of power outages, leaving the prison in complete darkness with no heating or hot water, sometimes lasting for days. Imagine being stuck in a cold, sterile cell, shivering under a thin blanket surrounded only by concrete and steel. That is truly a nightmare. The overcrowding makes everything even worse. MDC is infamous for cramming inmates into spaces far beyond its capacity. There's no privacy, no room to breathe, and you can never let your guard down for a second. For someone like Diddy, used to sprawling mansions and luxurious spaces, this cramped environment must feel suffocating. On top of that, Diddy is being held in solitary confinement, specifically in the Special Housing Unit, SHU, which is reserved for inmates who require maximum security. This isn't just any regular part of the prison, it's where they house the high-risk prisoners who could pose a danger to themselves or others. In his cell, he has a steel toilet and sink combo, a small writing desk, and a single mattress, that's it. He gets a blanket, a prison uniform, and some basic essentials to get by each day. There's no luxury, no amenities, just the cold, harsh reality of isolation. The worst part is the toilet in his cell is programmed to flush only 3 times a day, a bizarre regulation, but a standard practice in places like MDC to prevent inmates from flooding their cells. For someone like Diddy, this is just another stark reminder of how far removed he is from the extravagant life he once led. Solitary confinement also means that Diddy is allowed out of his cell for just 1 hour a day, And even that freedom is limited to a small, enclosed yard where he can stretch his legs. There's no interaction with other prisoners, no one to talk to. He's completely cut off from the outside world except for the guards who are monitoring his every move. The contrast between Diddy's former life and his current reality couldn't be more different. Just a few months ago, this man was flying on private jets, attending star-studded parties, and living in sprawling mansions. Now, his entire world has shrunk to a tiny cell with barely enough room to move. He's gone from a life of endless luxury to the harshest of realities, and it's something no amount of money can change. His attorneys expressed concern that he might be in danger, and they even tried to have him transferred to another facility in New Jersey, where they believed he would be safer. The crimes haunting him, the charges against him, were not only terrifying but also shocking for someone in his position. If convicted, Diddy could face spending the rest of his life behind bars. But what do these charges really mean, and how did the situation spiral out of control? The charges essentially outline what authorities use when someone runs a criminal organization, akin to a mafia boss but with a different flair. In Diddy's case, the authorities allege that he used his businesses, music empire, relationships, and wealth to conceal or even orchestrate serious illegal activities. He wasn't just implicated in crime, he was allegedly running an entire operation, using his power to control others. When people hear about this, they often think of organized crime, and that's exactly what prosecutors are hinting at. That Diddy's empire wasn't just about music and fashion, but had a much darker side where criminal activities were allegedly taking place. We're not talking about just one or two isolated incidents here. The indictment paints a picture of these actions happening repeatedly over the course of many years. It's not just about Diddy's personal actions. He's accused of using his businesses, staff, and even his security team to facilitate these disturbing events. At these events, it wasn't just about partying, it was about domination. According to some testimonies, some of the women involved in these events had no choice in the matter. Diddy is accused of coercing them to participate through illegal means or even threatening to cut off financial support if they didn't comply with his wishes. And let's be honest, when you got millions of dollars at your disposal, paying to settle matters or threatening others becomes all too plausible. And that's exactly what the authorities are worried about. The allegations of organized crime go even deeper. Prosecutors claim that Diddy didn't act alone. Far from it. They argue that his entire business empire, from Bad Boy Records to his other ventures, was a part of a criminal organization designed to help him carry out these illegal activities. They even allege that his employees helped him by arranging flights, sourcing women, and making sure everything went smoothly, all, of course, in a criminal direction. From bodyguards to assistants, those around him are said to have played a role in keeping these crimes hidden for as long as possible. History has shown that when stars and powerful figures are accused of such crimes, the legal consequences are often severe. Diddy's case bears many similarities to those scandals. Weinstein was once untouchable in Hollywood, much like Diddy in the music industry, but once people started speaking out, it was like a dam breaking, and the flood of allegations couldn't be stopped. Both men tried to use their wealth and influence to control the narrative, but ultimately, the truth came out. Diddy may be walking down a similar path. The involvement of Jennifer Lopez and Young Miami, a shocking twist. You won't believe how deep this story really goes, and it's not just Diddy's life that's at risk. Jennifer Lopez and Young Miami could also be facing serious legal trouble. This entire situation with Diddy is no longer just about him. Recent revelations in the lawsuits have drawn in some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry. and Jennifer Lopez, also known as J-Lo, along with Young Miami, have found themselves pulled into the drama. First, let's rewind to the infamous 1999 nightclub shooting. At the time, Diddy was dating J-Lo, and the two were frequently seen together. On December 27, 1999, they were partying at Club New York to celebrate the release of Diddy's protege, Shine's album. What started as a fun night quickly spiraled into a nightmare. During the night, a dispute broke out, and things escalated fast, resulting in 3 people being injured. Diddy and J-Lo fled the scene. At the time, it seemed like Diddy could be in serious trouble for the incident, but as usual, he managed to dodge the bullet, pun intended. In 2001, Diddy was acquitted of all charges, including possession and bribery, but Shine wasn't so lucky. He was held responsible for the shooting and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But this is where things get interesting. For years, rumors have swirled that J-Lo may have had a bigger role in the nightclub shooting than anyone originally thought. Imagine if that were true. This would mean J-Lo could have been involved in covering up a crime, and with these new allegations resurfacing, she might be dragged back into the investigation. Now, J-Lo's career has obviously skyrocketed since that night. She's a global superstar known for her music, acting, and style, and most people have probably forgotten about her connection to the 1999 shooting. But with this new lawsuit bringing her involvement into question, things could get serious. We're talking about potential legal repercussions if the case is reopened. And if the courts find evidence that she helped obstruct justice, she could face charges. This isn't just about public perception anymore. It's about whether she can legally escape this situation. Then there's Young Miami, who's facing her own set of allegations that could potentially get her into serious trouble. For those who don't know, Young Miami, whose real name is Kesha Brownlee, was on and off girlfriend of Diddy for a period. And together, they caused quite a stir as a power couple in the hip-hop world. But her connection with Diddy might have pulled her into more trouble than she ever expected. In a lawsuit filed against Sean Diddy Combs, his former girlfriend, rapper Young Miami, is accused of transporting a synthetic stimulant known as pink cocaine for him. The lawsuit alleges that in April 2023, Diddy desired this substance for an event at the Water Music Festival in Virginia. When his usual supplier failed to provide it, Diddy's team reportedly contacted Young Miami, requesting her to bring the drug from Miami to Virginia, which she allegedly did. If this allegation is true, it's not just a minor mistake, but a serious crime. Transporting stimulants across states could land Young Miami in big trouble, especially as the lawsuit accuses her of involvement in transporting illegal substances. But the issue here is that by standing by Diddy and publicly defending him, Young Miami could inadvertently draw more attention to herself. If authorities dig deeper into her involvement in the alleged criminal activities of Diddy, she may face charges of her own. This leads us to the potential legal consequences for both J-Lo and Young Miami if the allegations in these lawsuits turn out to be true. Both women could be charged as accomplices or accessories to Diddy's crimes. What's crazy here is the far-reaching impact of Diddy's legal troubles. It's no longer just about him. Those around him are getting swept up in this whirlwind too. Both J-Lo and Young Miami may have thought their connections to Diddy were just part of their personal lives, but now those connections are turning into very real threats to their futures. It's a reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control when you're linked to someone facing such serious allegations. the nightmarish, brutal reality of the prison Diddy is facing. When you think of Diddy, you might picture luxurious mansions, designer clothes, and private jets. But right now, his reality couldn't be further from that lavish life. Diddy is currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, in Brooklyn, a place so infamous that it's called hell on earth. And that's no exaggeration. The conditions there are so bad, it's hard to believe anyone, especially someone like Diddy, would have to endure them. One of the most infamous events that made MDC notorious happened in 2019, when the prison lost power in the middle of winter for over a week. The prisoners were left without heating, light, or hot water. Can you imagine? The temperatures in the cells dropped to freezing levels, and the inmates had no choice but to wrap themselves in whatever they could find: towels, blankets, anything to stay warm. People on the outside protested, banging on the prison walls to draw attention to the situation, and prisoners inside responded by banging and flashing lights from their cells to signal that they were freezing and desperately in need of help. It was a full-blown crisis, but nothing was done for days, and it didn't stop there. The water at MDC is often undrinkable, with some prisoners saying they went for days without clean drinking water. It's the kind of environment where diseases spread quickly and health deteriorates. This is not a place where you can let your guard down. Prisoners have to stay vigilant because fights can break out over the smallest things, and for Diddy, this is especially dangerous. He becomes a prime target in prison. In prison culture, taking down a famous person is seen as a way to earn respect. So, in addition to the harsh living conditions, Diddy has to constantly worry about who might try to attack him. It's a level of paranoia and fear that most of us can hardly imagine. The lack of human connection, combined with the filthy conditions, creates an environment where survival is not just a physical challenge, but a mental one as well. For someone like Diddy, who has always been famous and constantly in the spotlight, being cut off from everything he's ever known is perhaps the ultimate punishment. This isn't just about missing out on luxury. It's about being stripped of everything that once made him feel powerful and in control. Ultimately, MDC is a far cry from the life Diddy was once familiar with, and while his lawyers may be fighting to transfer him to a safer and better facility, for now, he is still trapped in a place where getting through each day is a struggle. The physical discomfort, fear, and psychological pressure of solitary confinement are slowly breaking him down, and if things don't change soon, this prison sentence could become the harshest reality check Diddy has ever faced. Thank you for joining us on this journey to explore the turbulent story of Diddy, one of the most powerful figures in the music world. We hope this story has given you a deeper understanding of the challenges Diddy is facing in his life, as well as reflected the dramatic shift from a life of luxury to the brutal reality of prison. If you found this story interesting and want to explore more, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss any compelling content.